Welcome to Daily Papers, the podcast where we break down the most interesting new research papers into something you can actually understand.
Today, we're looking at a fascinating question. How well do AI models, like the ones that power ChatGPT, actually understand human behavior? We tend to think of them as these super intelligent systems, but can they really predict what you or I would do in a tricky situation?
Right, and this paper, titled Alignment Makes Language Models Normative, Not Descriptive, has a really surprising answer. It suggests that the very process that makes these AIs safe and helpful might also be making them, well, a bit naive about how people really are.
Okay, so to get into this, we first need to understand that there are two main flavors of these big AI models. First, you have what the paper calls the base model.
A base model is like the raw, unfiltered AI. It's been trained on a gigantic chunk of the internet, books, articles, forums, you name it. Its only goal is to predict the next word. It's incredibly powerful, but it can also be a bit wild and unpredictable.
Exactly. Then you have the aligned model. This is the version we usually interact with. It's the base model that has gone through an extra training phase, a process often called alignment. This is where humans step in and teach the AI to be helpful, to avoid harmful content, and to follow instructions politely.
It's like the AI has been sent to finishing school. The base model is the raw talent, and the aligned model is the polished, public-facing performer. So the researchers here had a brilliant idea. What if we pit these two versions against each other?
They did just that. They took 120 pairs of models, each pair consisting of a base model and its aligned counterpart, and had them predict real human decisions in a series of strategic games. We're talking about games of bargaining, persuasion, and negotiation.
And these weren't simple one-off games. They were multi-round games where your decisions are shaped by what your opponent has done before. Think about haggling with someone. If they were fair to you last time, you might be more generous. If they ripped you off, you're going to be much tougher this time.
This is where the paper's title comes in. That kind of messy, history-dependent behavior is descriptive. It's what people actually do. The normative side is how people should ideally behave, rationally, fairly, and cooperatively according to textbook rules.
So the big reveal, in these complex multi-round strategic games, which model was better at predicting real, messy human behavior? The base model or the polished, aligned model?
It was the base model, and it wasn't even close. The raw, unfiltered base models outperformed their polite, aligned counterparts by a ratio of almost 10 to 1.
10 to 1. That's a huge difference. So what's going on? Why are the supposedly dumber base models so much better at predicting our actions?
The paper argues it's because of a normative bias. The alignment process, that finishing school we talked about, teaches the AI to expect people to be good. It learns that the correct and approved behaviors are cooperation and fairness.
But in reality, people bluff, we retaliate, we hold grudges, we act on emotion. The base models, trained on the unfiltered chaos of the internet, have seen all of that. They haven't been trained to forget the messy reality of human interaction. The aligned models, on the other hand, have been taught to ignore it in favor as a more idealized view.
But here's where it gets even more interesting. The researchers also tested the models on simpler tasks. Think of a one-shot game where there's no history with an opponent, or a simple choice between two lotteries.
In these situations, where the rational or correct choice is much clearer, the results completely flipped. Here, the polite, aligned models were actually better at predicting human behavior.
Because in those simple, isolated scenarios, we humans do tend to act more normatively. We behave more like the textbooks say we should. The aligned model's goody-two-shoes bias actually becomes an advantage because our behavior is more straight-laced in that context.
They even saw this happening within the complex games themselves. In the very first round of a negotiation, before any history or bad blood could develop, the aligned models had the edge. But the moment round 2 started and players began reacting to each other's past moves, the base models took over and started making much better predictions. It's like the polite AI is great at predicting the opening handshake, but gets lost as soon as the real messy negotiation begins.
So why does any of this matter outside of a research lab? The authors call this the alignment tax. There's a hidden cost to making AI models safe and helpful. That cost is that they become less accurate models of actual human behavior.
This is a huge deal for scientists and researchers who are increasingly using these AIs as stand-ins for humans to run simulations. If you're an economist trying to model a market or a political scientist trying to predict voter behavior, using a standard aligned AI could give you a completely wrong picture.
You'd be simulating a world of perfectly rational, polite people who always follow the rules, not the complex and often unpredictable world we actually live in.
Ultimately, this paper reveals a fundamental trade-off. Do you want an AI that's optimized for human use, a helpful and safe assistant, or do you want an AI that's a proxy for human behavior, a tool for understanding our own messy reality? With current methods, it seems you can't have both in the same model.
It means we have to be a lot smarter about which tool we pick for the job. If you want help writing an email, use the polished aligned model. But if you want to understand why people do what they do, you might just need to go back to the wild, unfiltered original. It's a great reminder that even with all their power, AIs are still tools, and understanding their biases is key to using them wisely. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Papers.